Recording in progress.
You look like you're good to go over there. Microphone's on.
Ready to go.
Oh, good. I should say speakers off.
Mine isn't yet. I was even thinking about it before that thing reminded me.
You are. Kick things off while you get this going. All right, so I'm going to get things underway since Gus is almost there. Want to kick off tonight. We select board meeting for Tuesday, November 19th. As always, the meeting is held in hybrid format. Select board is here in person, as we have quite a crowd here this evening. You may also attend remotely. On the town website, you'll see the link for Zoom. If you don't have access to a computer and we want to dial in, there's a conference call number. And as I always highly recommend clicking on the link, so everything that we're talking about tonight, you have the ability to review at home. And this is being recorded, so it can be viewed later. But on that note, let's kick things off. And I do want to take a moment of appreciation for our troops serving around the globe in defense of our country. Thank you. Kick off with appointments. First on the docket, FAF Center update, Permanent Building Committee, Parks and Recreation and Facilities. So, Christine, how best do you want to do this?
So we received the structural engineering report on November 15th, and I thought the best approach to this was to have Parks and Recreation, Permanent Planning and Building Committee, our building commissioner, and facilities department all in one room so we could all talk together. There have been multiple meetings since November 1st, so I thought the best thing was to just get us all together. So
Okay.
I don't know, Mike, if you want to give a little update as how Permanent Planning and Building's been involved, we can then go from there.
And as always, there's two mics, there's the podium and there's the one over there. The only reason we push against people just speaking from their chair is people at home can't hear you.
That means we have at least 3 mics.
We have 3 mics.
And a lot of extra chairs.
So I don't know where you want me to start, but obviously,
Name
as
and
we all
address.
know, what's that?
Name.
Yeah, that's right. Mike Quinlan, 1 Stewart Street. So obviously, this building has been an issue for many years and actually going on decades. And this is not something that's a surprise, I think, to any of us on the building committee, nor on Parks and Rec. But I got a text from Christine finding out that the Arrow Street structural engineer had been doing an evaluation of the building and noticed that the brick facade was basically could potentially fall either partially or in its entirety. And quickly we moved to sort of shut the building down, make sure it was safe, cordon off the area. Then we brought in Woodard and Curran to do an evaluation of the building, evaluation of what's going on with the facade. Mainly, there's some other issues which aren't part of that report that we should talk about as well tonight. The long and the short of it is that it's a triple wide brick wall or 3 rows of brick that are tied together. The outer wide of the brick is falling off the building. There's severe deterioration of the steel lintels, clear penetration of water into the wall, but doesn't appear to be going all the way through the wall. And the freeze thaw aspect of New England, water gets in, gets stuck and freezes, it expands. That leads to deterioration of all the mortar, which has led to a lot of the mortar coming out, which loosens up the brick. And then the bricks have now become non-coplanar, which means bricks up high are no longer sitting directly on the bricks below them, which could lead to potential failure. So Woodard and Curran issued their report last week, basically saying just on that issue alone, they're recommending a replacement of the roof, which is about 15 years old, and then a full sort of remediation of the facade. So pulling off any loose brick, anything that's not structurally stable, and then putting it back on and repointing everything with mortar. And so they estimated that to be about $600,000 to $700,000 fix just for that issue alone. That said, my other concerns, we still don't have evaluated yet because we may have to do some destructive investigation, is the floor. There's a large belly in the floor. It appears to be not particularly stable. It's actually spongy. You can literally almost bounce on it. So there's a big portion of that floor that needs to be evaluated for structural stability. And so that's another thing that, from a safety perspective, led to us shutting everything down until we could do an evaluation. So the long and the short of it is, as no surprise to any of us, this building is well past its useful life. We've been recommending it to be demolished at least as long as I've been on the building committee, dating back almost 15 years. And then we need to figure out, obviously, what happens with Parks and Rec, but we don't have a lot of options. We're either A, investing in a building that's throwing good money after bad and putting in a building that should be torn down. Or if we don't, then we now need to find a new home for Parks and Rec and figure out how they're going to operate. So, that's sort of the way my interaction has been with this. We've done studies on that building. We did a feasibility study a while back. We started it, never finished it because it got blown up with the school project. We had a solution that would have solved this problem, but we're not there. The town wouldn't support it. Continue to stick our head in the sand, if you ask me. This is not going to get better. It's only going to get worse, not just at FAF, at Dale, and some of our other buildings. So we need to figure out a solution that's going to keep Parks and Rec up and running and address the continued deterioration of our buildings. So that's my summary.
Okay. Why don't we pass the baton to Parks and Rec? And Mel, if you want to give some feedback, give us some ideas that you may be kicking around. I mean, or
Good.
Hip replace.
oh,
So we've been, Parks and Rec Commission has discussed as,
Yeah, I'm gonna hold for 1 sec. Can you
Sure.
just open your meeting real quick? And I'm gonna ask
Oh.
permanent planning and building to open your meeting as well. Sorry.
for Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, meeting of the Parks and Recreation. Roll call,
Nick Brown. Rob Satra.
Lauren Beetlefucker.
Mel Seabolt.
Okay.
Also open the meeting of the Permanent Planning and Building Committee. Roll call,
Tom Burke. Matt Weber. Kenny Bonifant.
and Mike Quinlan in attendance.
Awesome. Thank you. Good catch, Frank.
Very good. So we, over quite some period of time, we've well known that it's, I've been on the board now for 15 years, and I would use it as a frame of reference that first select board request from the permanent building in 2001, and then 2008's much more thorough, where they basically say there are so many things there, PCBs, asbestos, et cetera. And as Michael said, the demolition of the building, they thought it just wasn't feasible to spend the kind of money it would take to bring it up to code. And so our issue right now is, where do we go with the building closed? What does the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months look like? Temporary building would be ideal moving forward. How can the town help? Right now, we're renting at UCC. We're using Council on Aging. We're using the library. And we have some serious classes going on right now. And, we want to give some stability to parents coming in, and we start planning our summer in about 6 weeks. And people are already asking questions. What what does this mean to the programs? And just, we see, we see the most recent study, Wood and Curran, and I mean, their conclusion is saying what's been said for almost two decades, and that considering everything, the town might want to demolish the building and replace it with a new modern code-compliant building that can be designed to better align with the future vision of the space. And the future vision is, because of the lack of space, we've been precluded from expanding our current programs and not being able to bring in new programming. Right now, our Parks and Recreation, we do nothing for 7th and 8th graders. We do nothing for high school students. We do very little for adults. And, that's our mission statement is to bring affordable recreation to the entire town, and we're just not doing that. So for us, why we're here, as not to speak to before the meeting, is not to speak with the entire commission. It's just put together a few things that we would like to know. And the big thing is the immediacy. What happens tomorrow? Where do we go? I mean, right now, our Parks and Rec office is down in the warrant room. We currently have 5 employees. There's no printer down there. And we're expecting a 6th employee after the first of the year, an assistant director. And it's a 20 by 20 room. We need something more immediately permanent right now. And, no problem if we do it short term, 6-9 months, knowing that we're going somewhere more permanent, that's fine. But, for instance, this summer, we're going to need Dale Memorial and Blake to be able to run our summer camps. Those summer camps are really what carry us. We have waiting lists for all camps, and they're, for us, very profitable as far as being able to support other programs. And we're concerned about loss of revenue as a result. The big thing for us is we're aware that throughout the town, there's not a lot of current space that's open for something like this, a transition. So would like to know from the board basically what you have in mind for us. And we know I'm sure permanent building will speak on it. I noticed Tom and Tim were both on the 2008 committee that gave the report to the selectmen, and they'll probably they may have a few things to add. That's it. Thank you very much.
So I will kick over to you, Pete, and let you ask any questions or comments.
Well, I guess what I would say is that the town has just put its head in the sand for too long about the FAF Center, and we certainly need to get Park and Rec a facility. I don't know how we bridge the time between now and when you get a facility, because we don't even have a facility that's planned or ready to go. So if we'd gone a different way on the school, I gather that you guys would have taken over the Dale Street School as your facility, but that didn't happen. So we need to, as a town, figure out what we can do, and we're just sort of in scramble mode at the moment. So yeah, I don't have a solution, but I'm hoping that you guys can somehow work on a temporary basis, Katie, between now and whenever you get a building. But I mean, that's years. So we want to get you set up so that you can run your programs, and hopefully you can run a lot of your programs in maybe in the Dale Street School or some, I don't know. Katie says no. Okay. But I mean, the spaces that the town has are basically the schools, and so.
It's not much better. I mean.
No, I hear it's not so good. But we need to get you guys somewhere, so. Yeah, I'm perplexed.
Okay.
I'm happy to talk about it with you guys, but
Gus?
All right, there's the way I'm looking at it, at least, I guess my first question for anybody in the room, is there any argument to be made to preserve, repair the current Pfaff Center building? I don't see anybody raising their hand. I had the same reaction when I read the report. So one thing I would conclude here is that we are going to get rid of the Pfaff building. That's the first point. The second piece, in recognizing this all just came up this week, so when you're looking to us for an answer, it's like, we're good, but we're not that good. So there's an issue around what I'll call the short-term Parks and Rec. What are you going to do in the short term? I'm not sure whether, if the Pfaff Center is gone, unless there's a building I'm not aware of that's here. There is no short term. I don't think is 6 to 9 months. I think short term is some number of years. Would be my best guess. That's not because I know anything. It's just that I've learned not to be an optimist about how fast things like this are going to happen. So to me, the two issues, the first issue is, do we know for sure what our path for the Pfaff building is? I think we, at least at this point of the discussion, do. I'm assuming the Pfaff building comes down. The second piece is to try to find some, I'm going to call it semi-permanent, only because I don't want it to sound like short-term, 3 to 6 months. I think this is something longer than that. And I don't have a good answer for that, but my first question for that, the way I may not be looking at this right either, but there's two issues as I see that. There's a short-term need for Parks and Rec to have an administrative operation. It's easy for me to get my arms around solutions if I simply say that's one thing. And I'll tell you, not because I know, again, not because I know anything, but there's a building that's for lease 2 doors over from the Blue Moon. And I'm saying it just not because I'm recommending it, just saying I can picture an administrative place that we would look at trying to lease or rent. That's the easiest part of the Parks and Rec issue. The second part is to figuring out what facilities you would be able to use. I don't have a good feel for how even close the reliance on the school facilities is. So I don't know, like for instance, I don't know whether Potpourri is completely leased out or whether where my head's going is where can we lease anything in town that would get the job done for, I'm saying 2 to 3 years, but that's just, I'm just putting a stake there. Mike Weber, it's good that you're here because there's another piece that when I knew the Pfaff was going away, the question I have is, as a town, the Dale Street site, I think we don't want to just react to a building. I think we want to actually be strategic in what we think to do, what we need to do. The question I have, I didn't know you were going to be here, so this is great, and you probably aren't prepared to answer the question. But my question is, well, but my question is, would the possibility of the Dale Street School project being able to look at the larger Dale Street site introduce any options for the Dale Street School project that would be advantageous from the school building project standpoint? I don't need an answer now. I'm looking for ideas. I'm not starting with a position here. I'm just trying to play out all of the things we need to do. That's I know that the idea had come up before in terms of trying to find a Parks and Rec answer to have some sort of a combined picture of that whole site. And so that's kind of where my head is going. Whether Parks and Rec is there or not there has to do with whether we can find a way to combine a facility that would work. I'm guessing perhaps that where the town goes after we hear from MSBA this year probably would get us better answers to that question than we can have right now. So in a month or so, at least, maybe we'll know which way the chips have fallen on that. But I would go there, in my head, I'm going there saying, does this either just help the school or does this provide longer term solutions for Parks and Rec from a facility standpoint? That right now you're totally relying on the schools, but if this was a more deliberate collaboration, we'd have more going there. So that's not an answer. It's just kind of a starting point. I'll throw one more thing out. This may be a curveball, Christine, so if it doesn't need you. The other piece, and this is a Parks and Rec issue. It's a Parks and Rec and Select Board issue at some point. The issue that came up on Baxter Park around the Veterans Memorial, who's responsible for that, has my head going down the path that says, should we in fact be thinking of Parks and Rec as a Department of Recreation, to where we worry, the Parks and Rec worries about recreational facilities, which most significant of which would be McCarthy Park and Hinckley, and that we then need a department of, I'll call it, I think Buildings and Grounds is where we're going, but Parks, Buildings and Grounds, because I don't think, when the question on Baxter Park came up, it's like, no, care, custody, and control is complete with whoever owns it. And so I think you already know I wasn't initially pleased the question even came up, because it threw something at the Legion that I don't think belongs on the Legion's shoulders. But my thoughts here are not punitive. My thoughts are sincere around the mission of what current Parks and Rec actually wants. Is that if it should be a Department of Recreation, then I can see us looking at parks as a piece of overall building and outside maintenance across the town as a different way of thinking about how we're organized to get stuff done. And then we clean up. If it's a job you don't want, it's not like you're using it for, wiffle ball games or something. It's just a resource that currently you're responsible for. So I don't know, that's, with everything else that's going on, that's probably just a confusing issue. But I actually think we should be looking strategically at what we're doing. There's so many moving pieces here. We ought to be thinking about all of this.
No, we
Do me a favor and go up to the mic if you wouldn't mind. I hate to do that. Or you can take the mic with you if
Yeah,
it's
Mike, can
easier.
we get a traveling mic?
That's the only.
That's the other one. Okay.
Okay.
We entertained the Collins Center, several meetings, and I would say the consensus of our commission is we're in favor. We're in favor of that. I mean, right now, the way it's situated, we maintained the town hall, the library, historical society, the
Dwight Derby.
Hannah Adams, Dwight Derby House, Meeting House Pond, and these are facilities we don't use. So a number of Parks and Recreation departments in the past 10 years have gone to exclusively just parks and just recreation. So it's now just we're waiting for the Collins Center report, and it's, more discussion will have to be had. But we would be pleased. The discussion, I saw nothing on a while back, several months ago, when a gentleman here, I think it might have been Bob Allison, proposed, should the Mass School Building Authority not accept our application and we go forward to build it ourselves, would we include a Parks and Rec? And I, quite frankly, from that coming from a senior citizen, I said, that's quite impressive. I don't think we would have gotten that kind of response 20 years ago, but we would be in favor of that also. I mean, any way to get what we need. And we're not asking for something exorbitant, just to get our programs and maybe a few more programs that we've neglected over the decades. But that's it. Thank you.
And your programs make enough money that you can almost self-finance the building, can't
Oh,
you?
no, that's what the Hunden, I know Hunden has been quoted, and some of the different studies. We think, we asked them to be very conservative, and it's the commission's thinking that we could pay over a number of years, pay for that building out of and especially now with our revolving of 53 and a half. We'd be happy to roll that money over into the payment for the building. So, thank you.
So my point was just to simply get that topic on the table, not to drive to a decision, but I think that's part of the whole mix.
So, Gus, you opened with what was, I even got a phone call from a citizen today saying, I read what was going on. Please do not tell me we're going to spend $600,000 to $700,000 on a building that needs to be torn down. And I think we're confirming this discussion that that ship has sailed, and we're having something dealt to us a little sooner than we would have preferred. So I'm just going to kick around some ideas because I don't know the answers to these. But when I look around town, and I look at larger buildings, I don't know, and maybe Christine, you do, or Frank, you do we know where, like, Seventh Wave Brewery, the Old Potpourri, is that building, is there any vacancy in that building that we're aware of?
Where's my?
Yeah.
We had some people scouting out some sites before.
Okay, because I've got a couple that because I drove around town too to see where there's some, you can tell there's openings.
Yeah, my Tom Herb, 1 Newell Drive, Medfield. There is some space, there's just some, I think, 6,000 square foot warehouse space, but that's a pretty expensive thing to go into, to build out. I don't know what you think for.
And I'm not doing build out right now. I'm just trying to figure out if we have some open space, well, we have to look at other spaces. Because then I also, I live over on Metacomet Street. I go by Ghazi's garage a lot, and there's a building there that is just vacant. Like, there's nothing going on. He's using the garage area, but there's space. It's kind of closer to Randy's garage.
That's not a lot of space, though. I know which one you're talking about.
The way I
Yeah.
look at it is, I'm throwing ideas out. I know
Yeah.
it's bigger than the warrant room, right?
It is a little bigger than the warrant room. I think, yeah, because that used to be, there was a machine shop in there before. There's also a building behind Randy's, but I know nothing, Randy's garage.
I don't know.
I don't know what's in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. To the left of Randy's.
Oh, this is, yeah, to the left, as you're going
I
down.
had to walk my dog the other night and looked in and I'm like, okay, it's totally vacant. At least it
What
appears to
about
be.
what used to be Charlie Breen's space where the town hall went temporarily? Is that
That
still?
would be the
available?
other choice, yeah. I don't know if he has any space for lease or not.
The building that Gaza used to be on Park Street seems to be empty.
That building, that's a little tiny building, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one right near the railroad tracks.
That's right near the
Next to
railroad tracks.
APC.
And then the other, yeah, I mean, just another idea to be kicking around. I threw this one by Christine earlier today. Have we reached out to any of our surrounding towns to see, do they have any space that we could, as we look at programs that need to take place as we roll into January, February, March, April, we like, listen, years ago, we helped Dover out, right? They're today get water from us because they didn't have a situation, and that was in 1963,
Yeah.
right? And today we're still a good partner in providing water to them. Never push the button, say you guys do it yourself. So it's like, hey, can we knock on their door and say, we're in a pinch, you guys were in a pinch in 1963, we help you out, let's come on in 2024.
Yeah.
Could you help us out?
Yeah, so Katie Walper, Park and Recreation Director. Yes, we have, but it's funny because we've been partnering with towns like Dover who don't have a park and rec. Theirs is being built. So we've been partnering with them and they've been coming to the FAF. Dover Sherburne doesn't have their own building. Medway doesn't have their own building. Millis doesn't have their own building. So kind of in the 109 stretch of around us, a lot of these park and recreation departments don't have their own facility. The closest one to us would be Norwood. They have their own facility. And then further down the road, Franklin doesn't have their own facility. Rentham has a smaller facility. So in short, no. When we looked at and talking to local park and recreation directors, I'm close with Dover. I'm very close with Millis, Medway, Franklin, Norwood. We all have the same problem. Unless you have your own building, you're at the mercy of the schools. But then schools have partnerships. Let's face it, we're in the wintertime. And so all the youth basketball organizations have the gym space. And if not, AAU has them for their tournaments. So in that aspect, in short, we're behind the ball. However, like I have been living in this in the last 3 weeks, pivoting to the UCC has been amazing. The COA building has been, we're utilizing all the current spaces, but what's happening is because this is unprecedented times, we don't have, they already have meetings booked. They already have things. So we don't want to come in as a bad neighbor to say, hey, can we kick those people out? We need space to go to now. So I think in short for me, at what point I think in talking to our commission and talking to the select board is in the short term, how can we make this work? Because one of the things that we do are pretty self-sustaining. However, we're taking some of our profits and offsetting with our field and pond. So once we start canceling classes, like some of our revenue generators are like our events where like we do the winter ball, spring fling, camp, all our kids night out. Those are those one-day hits where we can charge a little bit more so that way we can offset fields, offset the pond, but already we've canceled programming. And so that's going to start with the trickle effect. And so we recently, and I don't have to go into debt, this is about our irrigation system, but recently we've been pouring a lot of money into our irrigation system at Metacomet and McCarthy. And so those are some of the profit that we made are going into the grounds. And what we're seeing is there's other things because of that nature. We're starting to see, okay, we look good right now in a revolving account because we're continuing and we're pivoting to go on the road. We did after school programming instead of at the FAF this last Thursday and Friday. I geared up myself and took kids to Urban Air and Apex. So we're pivoting, but I think for right now, my biggest concern as the director is short term. We also have to look at this as short term here is like, okay, we start planning for the summer and we're a licensed camp. So I have to get a licensing to say, where are we located? Where's the nurse's room going to be? And yes, it's like, oh, we're summer. We haven't even hit the holidays. We plan that starting December 15th. And so that's something that I get concerned with. And I'm sure a lot of our parents will be concerned with is if we don't lock down schools, say allegedly, if the building gets knocked down, when would that happen? Because for me, basing out of Dale Memorial, Blake would pivot to our older group, so they're still in walking distance of a pond and usage of a pond. So in we're okay temporarily. I don't know what this will look like because when this journey started 3 weeks ago, it was reaching out to the department head saying, "Hey, this could be a short term." To last Friday, like, no, it's not short term. And then as right now, Park and Recreation, we are also landlords of MAP and our after school program, who a lot of our MAP staff is here, and they're bearing the storm with us, right? So they're at Dale Street. So when we use school buildings, no, after school has their buildings because they need to run their after school program. So Dale right now from 2:30 to 6 is being used by MAP, and we are their landlords. And so they fortunately have a space. But that's how we're trying to all work as a team who are on the front line of this. We're making it, but at the same time, I think I will. At this point, I'm here for questions, but Lauren.
I was Lauren Beetlesbacher, 6 Deerfield. Really just wanted to speak more as a parent and then as Parks and Rec Commission. I appreciate the acknowledgement that, heads have been in the sand, but I just feel like as a parent, what are we signaling? I have a child at Dale that then walks over to the FAF Center, and what is this community signaling to her as far as the facilities where she is? Like, they're not nice, right? And they're not safe. And to say like, oh, I've just learned about this a week ago. No, this has been on the books for years and years and years. This is not a surprise. And so I like the disruption that's happening with my child going to MAP. Like some days she's in the cafeteria and they have amazing programming. The FAF has amazing programming. I know that whatever happens, these communities of MAP and Parks and Rec, we will make it work. But it just feels very frustrating that it's like we have to be reactive instead of proactive. And I just, like, as a parent, I wanted to speak on behalf of a lot of parents. This is quite frustrating that it's gotten to this, right? This is not a surprise. And I feel frustrated with the town that we let it get to this. And as we think about the space, it is important that we think about MAP too. So again, I'm speaking as a parent, not as Parks and Rec. But MAP is an important part of how my family and I are able to live our life. And so if that gets displaced, I know it might sound insignificant to you, but like the drop off and pickup, that is very choreographed in my life. So if I have to start going to a different place, then I got to call in the mom squad, and that's the whole thing. And that's a lot of text messages, and it's a lot of brain space that I don't have. So I really want us to be thoughtful and strategic and not keep kicking this can down the road for school or for Parks and Rec or for anything. Because what this town is saying to the community right now is that Parks and Rec and schools aren't really that important, and it should be. The facility is a signal, and right now that signal is very bad. And so I appreciate the forethought and I appreciate the acknowledgement that we kicked the can down the road, but like, time to respond. It's time to respond.
I came poking in June, you guys.
I know. I'm so glad.
That we need to have something, and I'll be honest with you guys. I was at the school building committee meeting last Wednesday night, and Mike, this towards the end, the gentleman sitting next to me immediately turned and said, "Okay, I'm going to call it the elephant in the room. We know there's we've been reading about things going on at at the Fast Center. And I'm like, okay, well, remember, there's five, I'm on the select board, and I'm gonna do the best I can, but there's 5 people that are elected in this town to run Parks and Recreation. And I'm sitting here, guys can look at my screen, I was director of Parks and Recreation in 2005, 2006 timeframe. I'm looking at a plan right now that we had laid out for the town, 4.5 million, 34,500 square feet on 3 to 4 acres. Like, we've been pushing this as a town for so long, and it's getting nowhere. And now we're at the point where now we have to do something, and there's gonna be no solid solution tonight. But I think, Lauren, something you didn't say, but I'd be intrigued by, is I just read, I don't have kids in the school system, I don't have kids, that school times are shifting next year. So now you've got to look at kids getting to school earlier, which means they're getting out earlier. Or later if they're right, middle school. But I'm thinking, I know, like, you're not leaving a 2nd and 3rd grader solo. You might consider a 7th grader solo. But I mean, that we need to look at as we start making the shift, because school's going to be out before we know it, and then we're going to be looking at next fall to figure out how are we managing this new shift in Medfield timetables. But so let me throw this next question out. Modulars, is it an option for, let's say, the next 24 months, while we look at something I don't want to do is I don't want to jeopardize what the school building committee is working on right now. There's vibes right now coming that, God willing, we might get a good signal. That being said, Mike and team are looking at what the school building committee is working on. It does not preclude Parks and Rec to say, we want to do something. I don't know if we want to tie the two together, because one could drag the other down. That all comes into communication with the town and educating what could happen, what we could be thinking about, what the state will fund, what the state might not fund. But Mike, I'll look to you in terms of modulars. And
So modulars are probably the most expeditious option at this point. And that could be done a couple of different ways. It could be done just for the administrative function, or it could be done on a larger basis where they could still hold some programming. We do modular classrooms all the time while we're building schools, if we're displacing people. So then that could be definitely a quick and immediate option, certainly before summer, and that could be done in multiple locations depending on what's best for the operation, whether it be at Metacomet, at Dale, at wherever they think would be the best location, or potentially even 2 locations if we're just talking small office trailers. And then there's sort of what I would call the intermediate option, which is some of these installations for modulars become what I would call semi-permanent. And that can often last, 10, 15 years in their location. And as well, there's multiple ways to go about that from a finance perspective. You can rent them, or the town could purchase them. Depending on the duration of how long we expect to be occupying them, would inform that decision. If we're talking about a short-term solution, then renting is best, but it doesn't sound like it's a short-term, because the long-term solution is not going to be completed in 2 years, 3 years. So whatever we decide has to last, in my opinion, 5, 10 plus years, because I just don't see anything. Maybe I'm too pessimistic, but I don't see anything happening with the school and Parks and Rec combined. The MSBA thing actually complicates that. So if we wanted to do it all on our own, absolutely, they could go together in a single building, but you're now talking over $100 million for us alone with no help from the state. Given that, if you think that can pass this town based on the last vote, more power to you, but I just don't see that happening. So we have a further problem in that if we're going to wait till we get part of a state-funded school project, Parks and Rec is then behind that, because Parks and Rec is no longer part of the MSBA partially funded project. So if you asked me tonight, just having done very little evaluation on long-term options, the best option right now is a modular solution. And the question becomes, how far do we go with it in terms of how big does it need to be, where's its location, and are we purchasing or leasing? That's my take on it.
I have one question about the point you made about MSBA and the combined Parks and Rec. if I've been following the conversations correctly, the issue with trying to do a combined project with Parks, in terms of physically, a combined project, is that that portion of the project that would be seen as Parks and Rec, which could be a big chunk of a gymnasium that would otherwise be part of a school, that part is not eligible for MSBA support. But it's not the fact that the buildings are physically connected, it's that part of the building that would be targeted to Parks and Rec would not be, but the other part would be eligible for MSBA support.
Tim, have you ever seen, and Tim, I'm looking at Tim Bonfatti for those,
Tim, do you mind joining?
a combined facility that the MSBA participates in that has a function that's not part of the school? I know administration sometimes, but those are segregated.
That's my point. You could, so it wouldn't be as good if we had, and I'm not going there, I just want to make sure we're clear on what options are. It wouldn't be as good as if it was a standalone school, because then MSBA would, all of that cost would be eligible. There might be some part in what we might call a gray zone that would be combined Parks and Rec and school that would not be eligible because there's any parks. And we'd have to think that one through, but it's not like you literally could not possibly have that happen. It's just that it probably.
It's not impossible, but it's, again, it's scrutinize it, and I also don't see them inviting us back this year, and
Well, I think we're
even next
planning
year
to
is in
go on our
question.
own,
So
Mike, if they don't.
I mean, that's a town decision.
Yeah,
I personally, not speaking for the committee.
So I think one of the things we haven't talked about tonight is how we're going to pay for this short term. Obviously, the long term is a cost factor, but we're going to need to talk about the short term because there's not a lot of cash on hand in which we can spend for a long term solution. I know we've looked at a building in town. They're looking for a 10-year commitment on a lease. Well, I think we could talk them down from that 10-year commitment. They're still looking at $8,000 a month. Park and Rec doesn't have that on hand, and the town doesn't have that on hand. So we need to figure out exactly how we're going to pay for this short-term solution. So that's why I think modulars is probably also another thing we have to look at. We've also reached out to our insurance company from the moment this happened, and they've been out several times to look at it. I spoke to them again today. They're not sure. They were going to have a meeting. They were supposed to get back to me before 6. They did not, which doesn't give me much hope. They were having an insurance meeting to determine whether or not this was a coverable event under our insurance policy. And they're questioning whether or not it's a coverable event because we have not done anything to address the issues related to the building in 2009. So, yeah. So they were concerned. They do.
Definitely not.
Right. Well, that's basically what they were saying. But they were interested in helping us with the floor. So, but the floor doesn't do anything for me if I don't have structural walls. So I'm hoping to hear back from them tomorrow, and I'm hoping we'll have a little more information on the insurance side. But in the meantime, we need to talk about whether or not this is a special town meeting before we get to May, or how we're going to handle the short-term financing. So I think if Katie and, we can all start talking about what the possibilities are for what they need in the short term, and whether or not that is the first 3 to 6 months until we can get an intermediate solution done, we can at least start talking about how we're going to fund this.
Okay. I do want to acknowledge there are 2 questions that came in. Megan Sullivan, I'd like to understand how the space used at the FAF Center compares to what is available at the schools and now requires multiple schools. I thought FAF was 1 big room and then 5 large classroom spaces.
So the FAF has 1 multi-purpose room with 3 classroom spaces from 2:30 to 6. We're in contract. That MAP Monday through Friday has those spaces. Park and Recreation, though, MAP is a great partner if I need one of the spaces. We also have 4 classroom spaces. 2 of them are used by MAP. We split the main hall. Park and Rec oversees 2 right now from 2:30 to 6.
Do you mind, because if I was out in the audience, I'd be wondering, I hear MAP. Can you give me a little bit more perspective on the number of bodies, all of that, just again, so when people looking at space, what do we really need?
Yeah, do we want to pass that to Annette? She would have more answers about MAP.
I'm Annette Gallagher, 1 Homestead Drive. I'm the executive director of the Medfield After School Program, who leases space from Park and Rec. Modular classrooms are a great space because we have 2 of them and they're pretty permanent. We lease space from the town and got permission. So we have a modular behind the Wheelock School and we have a modular next to the Memorial School, and it's great space. So if, Park and Rec needs a modular, that's great space. But we're also thinking about our space going forward. Right now, it's been fantastic having our partnership with the Park and Rec department because we've been there for over 20 years leasing space. So to all of a sudden not have space there, we're so grateful to the school because we've always leased space from the school as well at each of the locations. But to move there with, 70 kids every day and set up and take down, it's been pretty challenging. But we are still plowing forward. We're still providing great programming and care to the kids. But as we have the conversation as a town, I know MAP isn't part of the town or anything like that, but we've always had a great relationship and we serve so many families in the community, about upwards more than 350 families. We have lots of kids busy there every day at the 3 locations. So I just don't want MAP to, I know we only lease from Park and Rec, but we're a great revenue stream where we pay our bills every month. And I just don't want MAP to get forgotten in all this because we're kind of part of it too.
So your service, you just mentioned, that's why I was curious, how many
Yeah.
families, and there's 350
Lots.
families, whether they're not listening tonight, they may be watching the YouTube later.
Right.
So what, are we just being swept to the curb, which then leaves them in a glitch, and that's not what we're trying to do as a town. We are trying to provide services, but we haven't thrown a curveball, so now we gotta see what we can do here.
It's over 30 years we've been here.
Well, and I think when we got the call on November 1st that we were going to have to address this, when we got the first engineering study, and my first phone call was to Katie, her first question to me is, what are we doing with MAP? It wasn't, where am I going for administrative offices? It wasn't about the building. It was, what are we going to do with MAP? So please rest assured, we have not forgotten about you, and we're going to try and incorporate you in everything we do.
And there's actually a question here, and I'm assuming this might be one of your 350 families, that, from Bill and Desiree Ladd. What about the taxpaying families that send their children to MAP at the FAF Center? Can the town, once more info is available, consider temporary shoring up the FAF so that a quality long-term solution can be planned for both the rec department and your current rent-paying tenants who are also Park and Rec families? I think the challenge we have, and I'll just say this, is there's no temporary shoring up the FAF. The temporary is, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, dropping $700,000 into something that we're going to scrap anyways. So
With full occupancy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
And so the one thing, and I'll just say as chair, it's like we can't patch something up, taking good money and putting it into something that we know we're just wasting our time. That if we have to go through a very uncomfortable period to know that coming out the other end is going to give us a longer term solution, that's what I feel our challenge is tonight. And and what we're trying to do in the business world, everyone knew me. I didn't mind putting anything that might be controversial on the table because it was on the table and then we had to talk about it. No one was sweeping anything under the rug. And I feel like that's what we're doing here tonight as a group. No one's candy coating the message. We understand. We're sensitive, right? I mean, we're being sensitive. Nobody caused this. Certainly in this town, since I've lived here for 24 years, there have been multiple town meetings where Parks and Rec have gone up and asked for money, and they came so close in like 2006 or 2007. Then it was immediately said, you're behind the public safety building, you're behind the highway department, you're behind Dale Street. And when you do that as a community, you get where we are tonight, right? And that's unfortunate.
I just wanted to quickly mention, so when we talk about location, I've thought about this a lot since November 1st because this is what I do at night. So modular, I'm so excited to hear that because what we've been identifying is in short term, we can figure out in short term. However, I think for us as a whole, the location is ideal. So I think for me, from the director's standpoint, is thinking about if it sounds like the FAF will come down, how quickly could you get that down and could you put the modulars there? So the best part about our area is our location. And I think MAP and I were the same. For 4th and 5th graders, they literally walk. They walk to us. For Memorial on half days, they walk to us. So I think what we have been noticing just in 3 weeks process, we're needing more staff members because when we're partnering with the different organizations in different buildings, they don't want 3, 4 to 5 people to have those locking, unlocking privileges. So that's putting more work temporarily on who they can give access to. So I think having temporary, I am hopeful, like when I talked to Mel and Nick today, summer would be ideal because we have that huge camp and that's our location to walk. If not, then looking at the public safety building, I don't want to speak for them, but we have had some conversations of in the second floor temporarily within the next 2-3 months. Could we set up just our desk and space because that's where we are, and we're using primarily public safety conference room for yoga, our half-day classes, chess wizards, mostly out of that. So it's easier access. The other thing is too, from our family's feedback already, is that it's becoming too much of a puzzle for them. So having a consistent space like a modular with 2 or 3 classroom spaces is ideal, because I am afraid that people are going to start to get frustrated with where's this class, where's that class. We're communicating, we're sending alerts, we're doing emails. When I have a working phone line, I will call them too to make sure they know where they're going. But I think I'm asking the select board to, when thinking of this in total, those modular spaces as soon as possible is ideal for us for camp, as well as moving forward and keeping consistency and also not having to cancel programming because of space.
So I think that all comes down to cost, and in terms of taking down the building is $500,000 at least, right? I mean, yeah. I was trying to be a little positive, because I don't have $500,000 either. So
Hazmat, what hazmat?
Don't mean to rain on the parade. So a couple of things that Katie said I wanted to touch on. And if there was a demolition and then pave over and a full modular setup, that's $2 million, easy.
Mike, does that include the modular?
What's that?
Does that include the modulars?
No, that's just to demolish the building, abate the building, demolish the building, and then probably pave it over, make it level. That you could put a pad out for a full-on modular.
And Mike, I don't mean to interrupt, but real quick, I guarantee people are watching home going, $2 million to knock down brick. But what you need to educate them in is there's going to be asbestos that needs to be dealt with.
That's the abatement portion.
Yep.
So there's hazardous materials built into these old buildings, asbestos, PCBs, as Mel had mentioned. Those all need to be disposed of properly, and that is not a cheap process. So it's not as simple as knocking a house down the street to build a bigger house. So that's why it's that expensive. The possibility for the real short term and keeping the cost minimal just to get things rolling, you can do an office trailer that's just for administrative, and those come in varying sizes, up to 40, 50 feet and different widths, and sometimes double wides. You can combine them. So you could put a standard office trailer in the parking lot there. It would take up some of the parking lot, but you'd have operation. You could tie that either temporarily into the electrical service for the building, or you could use it straight off a generator. There's multiple ways to do that, and we do that on our construction sites all the time while we're living on construction sites. But that's a short-term fix. That's just to get to maybe a town meeting where there's a longer-term solution presented. And then the longer-term modular approach, let's say a 10-year approach, would be creating sort of a larger combination of these trailers into a classroom and office space for them. I actually was just talking about modular classrooms this morning on one of my projects for the town of Millis, and the current estimate for a single classroom for 2 years is $400,000. So, and that includes sort of electrical hookup and water hookup for those longer term. That's based off of like a 2-year term. So that gives you just sort of a frame of reference. So if that's one classroom, say it's 1,000 square feet, and they need 6,000 or 8,000 square feet, multiply that number by 6 or 8. You're looking at $2-3 million per year.
Christine, relative to that, $8,000 a month for what you were just talking about is like,
No brainer.
it's no brainer. We don't, because the question I have around administrative, and I'm just asking questions, I don't know. The question I have around administrative offices, we're talking about putting modular things in for administrative offices, and I'm saying there's office space for rent down at the end of West Mill, just before, those are nice buildings. I mentioned next to Blue Moon, which I have no idea what that thing even is, other than it's got a for lease sign, so I don't know a thing about
Can I
it.
interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
I just want to make sure this is clear. So a temporary office trailer that's just on wheels, tied in with either a generator or tied in electrical is different than a sort of the semi-permanent solution that I mentioned in regards to the hundreds of thousands of dollars of
Okay.
putting
That's
in a
okay.
temporary school or a temporary classroom.
I missed that,
You know,
okay.
there's a difference there. You can call any of Eagle Leasing or some of these other, and they'll wheel up and they'll pull it in and hook it up in a matter of days. But again, that's a small administrative office function only. If you're going to do something larger than that and you want classrooms and you want all of that, that's a bigger deal, and that's where those added costs come in. And you know, if you do have 8,000 square feet somewhere in town, that's obviously probably a more economical solution in the long run. I just don't know that that's been identified.
Thank you.
Just listening to this, the one thought that's crossing my mind is that, and again, not that we'll have an answer tonight, but it's going to help me a lot to know whether we've thought this through and said, no, we're looking for a 2 or 3 year short-term solution for Parks and Rec versus a 10-year temporary solution. It's actually hard for me to even think about how to deal with it when we're not sure what the broader strategy is. If it looked like it made sense for a 10-year solution, then I have questions that come to mind. For instance, how important is it that, I understand the preference is to have Parks and Rec right there at the Dale Street site, but if it was a 10-year solution, I'm thinking lot number 3 on Ice House Road is a place that is land. Now, I appreciate what you're saying about the kids being able to walk to the place, but I kind of am not sure which are the driving constraints, which is we have to be on Dale Street or we need land, sufficient land to put something, because that probably influences a 10-year, if it's a 10-year solution, again, that ties into the schools and what the Dale Street site might be and what we might wind up doing. It's hard. Good news is I guess it'll get easier in a month or not, but at least I think it might. So that's the one thing. As you were talking, my head went and said, all right, I think one thing, again, this is just me mouthing off. I can picture how Parks and Rec is going to have to prioritize things, because what you were talking about Chess Kings over here, yoga in the second floor, and I need more staff because they're going so many places. My head went and said, no, I think actually during this time of disruption, you're going to have to prioritize your programs. I get MAP, yep. I get the summer camp, yep. Some of the stuff farther down, it seems to me that the confusion, the logistical confusion of hosting it is so great. I can anticipate you got to figure this out. It's not but I can anticipate that as a practical matter, rather than trying to keep 35 pins in the air, juggling, and we lost the juggler, that there may have to be some decisions made in in the interim around some things that just are relative to their significance. And I'm assuming it's adult stuff, probably. I'm not really going after the kid stuff. That you might have to do that. Sure, yeah.
I just wanted to respond to that. We're self-funded. Everything we do is self-funded. So if we lose money, I think we also need support from the town on how we're going to fund stuff if we're losing revenue. Revenue. You can tell where my head's at right now. Revenue. I mean, because that's from a business model perspective. I understand what you're saying, but well, you know, that's how we make money. So what do we
Well, I
do
know,
when
but
we
if you're
lose?
adding staff, then you're not, you know, I'm
I
saying
know,
there's
but
a-
I think
there's a-
she's
there's
talking
a-
about more like part-time. She's just trying to, you know, articulate the logistics involved with this of being at like multiple different places. And I can let Katie speak more to that, but I think it's important for, you know, when we come to the town for money, it's hard sometimes to get stuff funded. And there are other, like, not to keep pointing out things that are wrong, but there are other also huge capital projects that Parks and Rec needs to attend to as well, like the Metacomet tennis courts as well. So, you know, if we keep, and we can't, you know, keep canceling programming and losing money, and then, you know, then the town's like, oh, that's your problem. So just something to point out.
So short answer on that, Lauren, is if what you're saying is, yeah, it's confusing, there's lots going on, we're all over the place, but we've got enough money to cover what we're doing, then my alarm about what you were saying goes away, because it's your problem, and if you can handle the strain, I don't have a problem. I was more reading it as, we've got all these people, we're gonna have to hire more people, and so we're gonna assume we're keeping the current programs. I don't disagree with you as long as you're saying, no, leave us alone and we can do it. I was assuming that maybe that's not what I was hearing. Right. Not if you can pay, not if you can support it. Not if you're, I was actually getting ready for, well, in order for us to keep 100% of our programs going, we're going to have to start leaning on the town. But my very, very clear, there's a school project. I would like to see it get through. Some of this other stuff is important. As much as you're talking about your kids, Parks and Rec was number 5 on the list before my youngest son was ever born. He graduated from college in 2019. So I understand things that didn't happen for a long time. I'm more concerned of trying to orchestrate a project that I would really like to see get through. And I'm worried about, I can see one way that this might get done because we can find a way to link it. I can see another way that it could complicate things because suddenly this thing is landing at the same time. And I would be genuinely surprised to see a supportive town on a financial basis saying, sure, yeah, let's throw that one in too, unless something miraculous happens on the total cost side.
To note too, is like, it's the domino effect here. And so we have said this since I've started 2 years ago, we use a lot of our programming to offset the pond and the fields. And so these are the programs that are offsetting. And so when I was projecting and doing numbers and thinking of like, okay, if I stop doing X, Y, and Z plus A, B, and C, in 2 years, we're going to be looking for funding to replace our whole sprinkler system, because we start to take the monetary of, okay, we got to, for example, in short, like we pay for the irrigation system to be fixed. We pay for the flagpole at Baxter to be fixed. Park and Rec is that pivot, like where now I'm already in 3 weeks pivoting our fall or winter 2, spring 1 programs to bus trips because I don't have space. Those can create additional revenue, but at what extent? Just like I can reach out to the schools and do kids night out, but what time do the custodians stay there till? Because then I need to pay overtime. So then at what risk versus reward? And so I think I want to be able to tell our families we have this plan. I have it. Jackie has this. Kirsty has it. We already expanded our ski club camp, having with an assistant director coming on in January, and that assistant's going to be able to help us continue. It's kind of one of those things. It's great that it's happening now that we have somebody coming on to now orchestrate, like your Mondays, I'm Thursdays, your Wednesdays, and fluctuate. So I'm very thankful for our staff. But when I think in short is that I'm just concerned if we don't have a structural and a temporary spot. At this point, I just want a home, right? It's also thinking about like the mental health of our staff and in MAP and what we're going through. And I appreciate this whole conversation. I just want it to stay at the forefront because this is my career. This is what my passion is. This is what I'm here to do, is serve our families. And just to note, in the last 2 years, our numbers have almost ballooned. And so I also am concerned of the ripple effect. If we start to cut down, people go to different avenues and private entities, and they no longer look for Park and Rec. And so I want to stay at the front because we do have really great momentum, and I want to keep it going.
Well, and what I think is really good about that, Katie, is information, education always helps people. So what you just said, if you could put that to paper, that says, here's our program right now. Pretend the Fast Center never imploded.
Yeah.
This is what going into the summer of 2025 would look like.
Yeah.
Now we have a significant bump in the road.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to be options. So option 1 is the following. This is the financial impact. This is the family impact. Option 2 is the following based on this availability, not that. But I mean, I pushed that back on Parks and Rec group to say, you've got to look at that. Because we can't fly this blind.
Yeah.
You are our number one priority right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to say argue with you, but I mean, yes, Dale Street is a priority, no doubt. But now we have another building that's come up because it hasn't been addressed in over 25 years, if not 35 years. Now we are where we are, right? We can't change it, but we can address it best possible. I know when I sat next to the gentleman at the school building committee meeting, the idea of educating the town, if we can do something with a new Parks and Rec facility, what the town needs to realize is it's not just for 4th and 5th graders. It's not just for 7th and 8th graders. If it's done right, it's an extension to what the senior center, when it was first built, everyone said, don't call it a senior center. It's a center at Medfield, right? Because it's supposed to be serving all the residents. It's kind of turned into being a senior center, and I have no problem with that. I understand it. But it's not the rooms that, when we voted back in 2008, 9, 10, 14, whatever those years were, I think people thought there was going to be more accessibility. So now we build a new Parks and Rec facility, and that's where our true accessibility is. And you educate the town on that, and it becomes a little bit more like it's not just going to be for the youth. It's really a true town center. So if you could do, if you could start as a group looking at the finances, what you thought you had, and now what you may have to look at going in, that's going to help us with, what the town's going to be impacted by, with what revenue will or will not exist. And I think what you just highlighted, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christine, on this, when we look at Metacomet Park, that's your care, custody, and control, right? I can't come in tomorrow and say I want to do something without going to you for approval. But then to see a hook of, well, you want that, you've got all the other stuff that goes with it.
Yeah.
And that's where I know there's been a push to say, can we start as a town breaking, and you were referencing this earlier, you kind of have to wonder when you ask for too much, it's like, okay, I want it, but then I got to carry all the costs. If you start looking at, if you can peel some of those costs off and they become part of the town's responsibility, but then so does the care. Now, I'm not saying we're not giving you guys the ability to rent out and all that, but those are all the things that really, this unfortunate Fast Center situation is now drawing out a much bigger conversation that people were kind of putting their heads in the sand, like, it's not a good idea, it's not a good idea. Well, now it might be a really good idea when we look at what's going to cost the town over the next 10 years and going on. Okay.
So, Select Board has no expertise in this. What I'm happy to hear is the expertise that the town does have. When I listen to you, Katie, and when I listen to you, Mike, about the construction issues, it's very clear that you guys have the expertise on this. Annette, the same with you and MAP. So I think that my suggestion is that the town form some sort of committee to come up with a solution for this. Ultimately, it's going to cost the town money because the Park and Rec is not paying rent where they are now. So all of a sudden they're going to have a new nut to crack every month. And so that's a town voter decision as to where that money comes from. But I think that the people that are the experts on this should get together and come up with a plan. It's very helpful, Mike, to hear and you can just rattle off those numbers for it. It's very reassuring to me to know that somebody with your expertise is willing to look at this and share your knowledge, because we don't have it. But
Pete, let me just, on that point, just want to understand what you suggested and what it means, and everybody that cares about this is in the room, so this is good. The committee that would look at that is the Permanent Planning and Building Committee. Given that there is a operational dimension to this that Parks and Rec is deeply involved in other words, what your Parks and Rec program is, or what it wants to be, and over what time frame it wants to be, is directly tied to what this building would be. So I can see a committee between Parks and Rec and Permanent Planning and Building Committee doing that. I don't think it's a new committee. It's not
I don't think it's a new committee.
Yeah.
It's just a group of,
Okay. And the Warren Committee, right.
it's
Yes.
just a group of people. The people that have interest in it need to get together in a room.
we did the DPW, we brought in the
Right.
DPW as part of the process, same with police and fire.
Right.
This is no different.
Okay, that, I just wanted to understand what committee we were suggesting there. That's okay.
No new committees.
Good.
Oh, absolutely.
Kurt Jackson, 124 North Street. I was just, I know we laughed at,
Wait a minute, that's Parks and Rec.
I know we laughed at the idea that it would cost $2 million to knock down the FAF. So does that mean you leave it there?
We weren't laughing. That was the
No, but do
grimace.
you leave it there and wait for a couple of years for it to cost more? Because Katie mentioned knocking it down and building, there. Is that not an option? Or do you just leave the FAF there? Because I think it'll be an eyesore after a while,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, thank you.
I was just curious, just because
No,
I know you
what's your
said it's
question?
going to cost a lot.
It's a great question. So, I think there's no answers obviously right now. That's one of the main questions we would need to answer. And I think what we as the building committee need to do is sit down with Parks and Rec and talk about the options, develop a list of options, because there's no one option here. And then ultimately that needs to go at certainly, I would think at the latest to town meeting in May and say, either A, with a recommended option, or B, we need, a couple of articles and say, which one do you want? And so that includes the possibility, sooner or later, that building is going to need to be knocked down. Does that happen right away? And then you build a pad for a modular, or a permanent building solution there that maybe even is attached to the Dale Street School. All of those things are on the table, but they all have price tags, and so it's really a question of what is the town willing to support, and because we can present options and ones that we would recommend. Let's be honest, they're not always accepted by the town. So here we are. And we can put out a handful of options that have a value, that in conjunction with the Parks and Rec Commission and Katie operationally have potential solutions. So yes, that is a solution. You could potentially, if it was funded, knock the building down, build a pad, and put in a modular Parks and Rec that could last 10, 15 years even. Or it could be a more permanent solution that lasts 30 to 50 years. So that is an option. I just thinking the immediate need, the option I mentioned, which was just getting an office trailer, just so you have an office that you can operate out of. And then that's also a question, with the building inspector is that, I don't know if Dana's here, but, oh, hey, Dana, is partial occupancy just for the staff possible? No. Okay. I got that answer real quick. But we could park a trailer in the parking lot, and you could have offices right there, but that's, we would need to rent that on a temporary basis. That's probably the most immediate solution in my mind, unless there's another space in town where you could put the staff. That said, if you're looking at doing the modular solution long term, and that location works the best, then yes, you could knock the building down, build a pad for it, and put it in there temporarily. Temporarily meaning 10 to 15 years. Ultimately, there's going to have to be a long-term solution. The question is the timing of it all, and what will the town support funding-wise. But if the town won't support that, then the building gets mothballed, which has a cost in itself. And we've seen that with the state hospital. We know what mothballing is. So there's a cost to doing nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, I'm gonna get ready to move on. I think we've talked this through, which is good. I appreciate everyone showing up from the various committees and boards. And I guess, Mike, would I look to you to see which?
I'll talk it through with Christine and we'll get a meeting on the books with my committee to talk, come up with a work plan for at least the next couple of months, do some evaluation. I know we don't, still need to, I think, I mean, it actually doesn't sound like we need to investigate the floor if we're ruling it out altogether. But I'll need to figure out if we need any other consultant dollars to evaluate any other sites or anything like that. But
Okay.
we'll have to stay tuned, I guess. We'll get a meeting together after the holiday and start planning.
Okay, yeah, because we have 2 meetings in December 3rd and December 17th. Do I have my numbers right? My dates right? So just let me know, and Christine will.
December 3rd certainly won't happen too soon, but December 17th, maybe we have an update for you. If
Okay.
not, it would be in January.
Okay.
At the risk of being sacrilegious, Christine, this is probably coming your direction again. Is there, if we were talking about the purely short-term construction trailer, find a short-term solution for Parks and Rec administrative officers, is there any reason why the 12 acres south of Hospital Road wouldn't be available as just, all I'm thinking of is land space? Is there any reason why we couldn't use that?
I mean, what you're looking for is location, what's best for them operationally.
Do you mind going to the mic now? The only,
Yes.
yeah, okay, he's gonna bring it to you, sorry. At first I didn't mind, then I'm going, now he's gonna get in deep and.
The location is obviously the most critical, but then it's services, so electrical, but you can run them off of generators. It's just they can be noisy, and if you have neighbors nearby, they're gonna hate it. But it's really, yeah. Well, they do have ones with bathrooms, with operational bathrooms, that are pumped on a weekly basis. You basically have a tank that just gets pumped on a weekly basis. So it's less of a concern of, I mean, it doesn't require much space. It's only, I mean, for 5 people, you could probably get away with like a 10 by 40 or 50, depending on how cramped they're comfortable getting. But
So it sounds
but
like-
location is the most important for them.
Okay.
But there's
Using the
many
parking lot.
options. I mean, you could do Metacomet, you could do, the current site, you could do Hinckley. There's plenty of places. You could-
Hinckley as
So,
well.
and if it was the parking lot there, it's not a big deal, is what I guess you're saying. Okay.
Correct.
Just from a Parks and Rec perspective, what should we tell families? Like, what is it, like if they ask, like if they're asking Katie, what's the right response? Like, what's the right thing to say?
Yeah.
It's a work in progress, or
What's the question you're anticipating being asked, Lauren?
what's happening with FAF? Yeah, right? I mean, is that,
Right.
Yeah,
It's-
I think you say we're working on a temporary solution, and then, we're being forced to look at a long-term solution. We were hoping to wait till after the school vote, but we're gonna have to look at a longer-term solution sooner than that. And then I would echo what Mike says. I'm always worried about having a special town meeting. I still have PTSD from the annual we didn't have enough people show up for, so I'm always worried about a special, because we're talking about an override. As soon as we're talking, $2 million, that's a debt exclusion override that also will need an election.
Well, and I think, also have them watch this. This will be available on YouTube when this winds up tonight. If they want to watch the beginning of the meeting and look at the dialogue, I think there's been thoughtful dialogue. I think they're going to hear the challenge that we have ahead, and it's no one's fault, and there's going to be no overnight solution. Thankfully nobody died here. That we just have a building that's not operational, but we're going to have to make it work in some way, shape, or form. But it's not going to be the perfect solution. At least sitting here tonight, we didn't pinpoint something.
Yeah, and I just want to make note from 2 park and rec departments that just went through this with a trailer. They highly recommend don't go into a trailer. So I would like to explore all options, and that's our last option. Just coming from those 2 directors alone, the complications, winter in the bathroom, if you don't get one. And also it was just like having meetings. It was not pleasant for them. So they had recommended to me to explore all options in their last and then thinking of myself personally, I would like to do that as well. And then the summer would be a whole nother thing that we can talk about, because that's when our staff balloons, and our office is our nurses' room, our break rooms, all of that, which will need space that
Yeah, oh,
will
no.
be talked.
So that sounds like the West Mill, for right now, for 5 or 6 people, West Mill might have a thing that would actually be nice. Might not cover the summer, though.
I mean, I guess the request would go out to Memo too, like if there are any buildings that they are aware may be opening up, we're all ears. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Never dull moment.
Oh, all right, number 2 here. Oh, yeah, you have to adjourn, good call. Parks and Rec, you need to adjourn your meeting and permanent planning.
Now I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our Parks and Rec.
All in favor?
Motion, do I have a second? Motion has been presented and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right, thanks, you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next, make sure no questions, okay.
One off.
All right, next up, we have George Lester to discuss the installation of bicycle repair station at Rail Trail donated by the Appalachian Mountain Club Bay Circuit Trail. So, come on. I don't see, is George on?
13
Is he
participants.
the Southeast Mass?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hold on, George, we're coming for you.
Up, he's got his hand raised, yep. That would be me. Yes. Hey. Hey, good evening.
Hi, George,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Give me 1 sec. There's still a lot of chatter in here, and the TV is horrible for hearing somebody come through. So, like maybe 1 more second, and I know you can jack up the volume back there. Yeah, thank you. All right, there we go. Thank you, George.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I know many of you, of course. I'm here as in my capacity that I'm the town's rep for the Bay Circuit Trail, which of course is a long distance trail that goes from the North Shore all the way, makes a ring around Boston and all the way down to the South Shore, and it passes through Medfield, entering around the hospital and then exiting down, passes through Noon Hill and eventually out Elm Street down towards Walpole as a designated long distance route. Anyway, the Appalachian Mountain, the Bay Circuit Trail is not an organization or entity of its own, but it's essentially a project of the Appalachian Mountain Club that maintains it. And there's a rep in each town, and we do things that just keep the trail markers up, maintain the trails, and so on and so forth. Anyway, they reached out, and of course, one of the it's a multi-use route intended for hiking or mountain biking, or in some locations equestrian, and so on and so forth. So they reached out that the Appalachian Mountain Club reached out to me that they have money available for some smaller local projects to use before the end of the year, and offered to fund a bicycle tool stand at a good location on the Bay Circuit route. And I immediately responded. This was something that actually put out to a lot of the towns. But I immediately responded with, we have the perfect location because it's the intersection of the Bay Circuit Trail and the Medfield Rail Trail. And that intersection is right at Ice House Road, because the trail comes out from the comes out from the hospital property, McCarthy Fields and so on, down that pathway through to Ice House Road, past the Kingsbury Club. And then it eventually goes on down Adams Street to pass through the center of town. But it goes right by, the whole idea is it goes right by the rail trail. And then of course, so then you have the rail trail heading. So the Bay Circuit Trail is essentially north and south, and the rail trail there is heading east. So it's the perfect location to serve a bicycling public. It's kind of a hub location for both mountain biking up and down the Bay Circuit Trail, but also for all regular gravel and road and mountain biking up the rail trail. So anyway, we're here today. And I think Christian Donner is in the audience, and he must have supplied this picture. This is the picture you have here is one of these installations in Holliston. And I can say I'm also part of, now I'm not here on behalf of the New England Mountain Bike Association, but I am involved with New England Mountain Bike Association, and we have installed these in 3 or 4 other locations in the last few years, including Blue Hills Reservation and Borderlands State Park. So we have volunteers that kind of know how to do the installation, and we've got this product here. It's made by Saris. It's called the Saris Deluxe Public Works Stand. It's been a good product that we've used in all these locations. So we're here to ask the board's blessing to go ahead and have this installed at that location on Ice House Road by the rail trail parking area.
So this picture that we're looking at is what it's going to look like?
This is the one.
Yeah, that's an example. Yes, and you can see, well, what it is it has, it's a bike repair tool station. And in the picture, you look like hanging on cables. It's a whole set of bicycle repair tools. And they're attached to cables, retractable cables they pull out of the device, obviously so that it can be public use without the tools disappearing. So it's a heavy duty tool station. And then it has a pump down below. That's part of it. It mounts through 4 bolts on a concrete pad. So part of the installation would be having to pour a 36-inch by 36-inch concrete and 4-inch thick concrete pad, and then with the bolts to screw it down.
And specifically.
Hey, can you do me a favor, Joe? Actually, go to the podium only because the other one is tapped into the TV.
Yeah, so Christian Donner, 92 Green Street. The specific location that we've been thinking about was towards the Kingsbury Club side, because on the other side we still have the rails in the ground, and then there's a lot of car traffic, so we don't want it to be knocked over, obviously. So if it's a little bit out of the way towards the trees in the back, but in the middle of that line, if you want, I think we can have a safe place to put it. Small footprint would be a great asset for both trails, really.
So when you say going, so I'm envisioning where the Marset girl put her painting. All right, so we before the painting going down, the mural going down the trail?
No, on the
after?
other side, on the parking lot side.
Oh, so you're, okay. Ooh.
Yeah.
So you don't think that'll get hit over there with cars coming and going? Because it's kind of narrow opening?
Not in the back, towards the trees.
Okay. The only thing, okay.
How do bicyclists know that it's there?
I mean, I'm open to any other suggestions. There's really that was the one place that I could come up with. If you think it's better on the trail on the other side, so that you can still see it, people can see it who ride by and are looking for. It needs to be advertised that we have
Only
this.
because you're leaving
but-
tools on there. When you say it's going to be out of view, I'd just be concerned that someone potentially mess with it if it's back in the corner of the parking lot.
They're all attached. This is Tampa proof. You can't remove things.
No, well,
Well, I know what you're saying. There are people, yes, it will happen at some point, but it will last a long time, I think. And Holliston, frankly, that one, I took that picture because Pam and I rode our bikes, and I needed to put some air in the tire, and so it was a godsend, frankly, that the station was there, and so I was so happy that I took a picture. I didn't realize, I was going to need it for this meeting tonight. But that is also out of the center of town. It's in a more towards the Sherborne side, in a remote location a little bit, and there were no things missing. It was, it's fine.
So this is maybe a dumb.
Can I do one quick
Oh,
thing? I just
sure,
want to
yeah.
make sure, I didn't want
Oh,
to cut
yeah,
Pete off.
yeah,
Pete,
sorry.
do you have more questions?
Yeah, I do. I think this is a great idea. So thank you guys for bringing this forward. And I would, if you're going to put it somewhere, I would suggest near the painting where people are going to see it, because that's what I think you want. I think you want.
Well, we're also gonna have the kiosk go there, right? So that's the other thing that you approved last week, thankfully. Thank you for that. So that's going on, and we have to put that on the probably on the right side across from the kiosk. Now we have another thing that's going to get a little crowded. So also, I mean, but it's a possibility if that's
Yeah, well,
preferred.
I guess I trust you guys
Yeah.
to figure out the best place to put it, but I think it's a great idea, so thank you for bringing it forward. I'm in favor of it.
In favor on the parking lot, or I mean, is there a strong?
Basically, we'll trust you guys to put it where
Okay.
it should go, but
All right.
I'd put it between Ice House Road and Harding, and I'd put it before the painting.
Christian and I can meet on site. This opportunity literally only came up a few days ago, and we want to thank Christina and the select board for being willing to entertain it on the agenda so quickly. So Christian and I can meet on the site, and we can figure out the best spot. Based on that.
So the basic idea, especially, it's helpful to see the picture, because when I first heard it, it's like, oh boy, we got a kiosk, we have parking, we have benches, now we're gonna have this. It's not gonna look like a pristine nature trail. It's gonna look like sort of a, minor highway, but that's fine. So I'm on board with that. The only thing is, unless there's a reason, because we're too far away from the Bay Circuit Trail, I would have put it on the rail trail near Harding Street, because you've got more bike traffic going up and down Harding Street. And if you put it in the back of a parking lot, that was where I said, how do bike riders know where that it's there? It's like, well, if it was visible off of Harding Street, either way people are going, and there's far more traffic on Harding Street.
That is another point, and I don't know that. I mean, it is up to them, to George Franklin to make that call.
Yeah.
Because it's the Bay Circuit Trail.
Yeah, if it's got to be on the Bay Circuit Trail, then I understand, but otherwise, it's like, that would be a more useful, and there's open, you keep it on the Ice House Road side of Harding Street, not inside, but there's room there.
We could have a sign on Harding Street. It
Yeah.
says bicycle.
Well, yeah, you could do that too. Yeah, then we got another sign on a trail. So that was the only, the idea of what it is sounds great to me. I'm more concerned if it went in the backside of a parking lot, hardly anybody would ever use it, where if we're going to put it in somewhere where it's going to be useful for bike riders.
Yeah, and I agree with both these guys said in terms of, I think it's a great idea. Location, I think, does need to be looked at, because if you're working on a bike and you're in the back of the parking lot, that just, to me, is just not a safe setting. Because it's not well lit in the back of the parking lot. And if somebody's doing something and you got people driving in, if we could look at the rail trail itself, either, as Pete said, towards the Ice House Road or Harding. Harding is a bench right there. I mean, you could literally have it near the bench, so if somebody's working on it or they're with a buddy, you've got a place to kind of rest, and it's more visible.
So
I would just say, given it being paid for by Appalachian Mountain Club for serving the Bay Circuit Trail, and having it serve the rail trail is essentially a bonus. So I think the location does need to be somewhere within closer to Ice House Road, but
Okay.
like up on the rail trail a bit sounds great to me. And Christian and I can go and work it out. Again, the footprint is just 3 feet by 3 feet concrete pad.
Yeah, I would look at, once they know where they're going to put the kiosk, I don't think it's that bad to have it like
Next to it.
next to it, near it, because as you said, it's not that tall, and it's you're not having going on a hunt for it. It's right there.
Right.
It's not going to look too cluttered.
yeah, no, sounds good.
I don't think anybody's going to see it in the back of the parking lot, Christian.
They might bump into it with their car, and then
You see it. You see it when you're driving. No, but I mean, one advantage would be that you can point your cars at it, and if you have if it's dark, you can make light. We don't have light
You're on
anywhere
a
else
bike
on
and
the
you're
road.
not driving a car. How do you?
Oh, people bring their bikes on cars, and and then on
long as your
bike
bike breaks down
carriers.
the right-
No, I'm just thinking if someone's bike breaks down, they're,
Yeah, well, if you're riding the Bay Circuit Trail, then it's not going to help you. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think if anything, George, before it gets to final installation, can you just give a quick heads up as to where the final slot's gonna be? Or where you'd like to be?
I can say honestly, what we're looking for tonight is if you give the green light on the concept, then Appalachian Mountain Club will give us the money. And it's like one of these grant things where, they say, oh, we have to use it by the end of the year, and that's why it popped up. So if you all give the green light for the concept, then they will give us the money to purchase it just comes in a big box. And then we can come back to you with a more precise site location plan.
Okay, well, I think what you've heard from the three of us is we all support this.
Yeah. Hey, George, does the Appalachian Mountain Club, I'm just looking at this picture, it's got the Friends of Holliston Trails. Does the Appalachian Mountain Club get any visibility on this thing that they donated it?
Well, it will have a Bay Circuit Trail logo on it, yes. They'll get.
Because I was going to say, if you wanted to talk them into putting it closer to Harding Street, basically offer to have them put something donated by the Appalachian, they'll get better marketing off of Harding Street than they will at the end of Ice House Road. But either way, if it's on the Ice House Road side of the
Big
rail
picture
trail,
is
so.
you have our support. So I
Yep.
think if that's what you came here for tonight, we're good. And we're
Yep.
gonna move on.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
bringing it to us, George.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, George. Good to see you.
All right. So discussion, potential votes, discussion of senior
Thanks,
tax,
Christian.
senior tax exemption and recommendations for FY 2026.
Sorry. So last year, as part of my goal setting for fiscal year 25, we had talked about looking at some additional tax relief to our seniors. So Yvonne was kind enough to work with me over the last few months to work and come up with some options and some recommendations that would need approval at the annual town meeting.
Okay.
So she is probably poised best to explain them all to you and why we're making these recommendations. So I'll just have her give you an overview of what exemptions we have and what we're proposing.
Okay. And if you don't mind going up to the mic. Hate to do that, but everyone at home will be texting us. I can't hear. Who's saying?
Okay. Can't see so well, so this will be up. All right, so what I gave you was our existing exemptions. So basically, we have exemptions for veterans with a disability. We have 2 exemptions for seniors that have limitations on income and whole estate. And then we have exemptions for people that are legally blind. So we have, this year, we have about 73 applicants for those. And then our senior tax work-off, we had 51 people participate. And I anticipate at the end of the application period, it'll be about $140,000 that we expend on exemptions and senior tax work-off. And that comes out of the overlay, which I'm sure you all know. So in here, it just gives you a brief explanation on all of the exemptions. I don't know, Christine, if you wanted me to go all through all of them other than what I just said.
No, I think let's highlight the recommendations that we're making.
All right, so what we're recommending for, if you turn to the second to the last page, there's a chart.
Yep.
Okay. So what we're recommending is to change clause 17E, which is elderly or surviving spouse. So currently, to qualify for this, it can be any income, but their whole estate cannot exceed $40,000. And the exemption amount by state is $175. But Medfield many years ago adopted the doubling effect, and so applicants get $350. Up to $350. So it takes a little bit of time to get there based on how your taxes increase. I won't go into that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of tracking. But basically, most of them now get the $350. So what this would do, it would increase if we adopted to increase these amounts by what the Department of Revenue puts out for a COLA. So what I did on this chart is I gave you the last several years of COLAs that were approved. So if we had approved these adjustments back effective for fiscal 21, you can see how it would change over the years. So, sorry to look. So right now that is 40,000. If we had adopted it today, it would be 48,987. So every year it will increase the whole estate requirement, which is good because then more people will be able to qualify for this. The other thing it does if you adopt clause 17F, that would increase the amount by the same COLA. So right now the max is 350. If we had done this, the max now would be 429. And so it just builds every year. So then the other clause for the elderly is clause 41C. And if we adopted 41D, it would increase the amounts for the income, because that's an income limitation, and the whole estate. So right now, the income, if you're single, it's 20,000, which is very low. Income, if you're married, it's 30,000, and the whole estate requirements are 40 and 50. So those, again, would build, much like this chart shows, over the years as you apply the COLA. So we're recommending that. And then a new one is clause 22I. This increases the amounts for veterans by a COLA. Now there's no income test, no whole estate test for veterans. It's just if you have the disability rating, you get the exemption. So right now the standard exemption is 400. We double it to 800, and again, it would build. This, however, is the first year. This is brand new with the HERO Act. So this is the first year that they would be able to receive a COLA for fiscal 26. Okay, so we are recommending those. Do you have any questions on those or on exemptions in general?
I do have some, thank you, Yvonne.
Okay.
So the whole estate amounts is that like the
That's
total of all their assets?
excluding the value of the domicile.
Correct, right, except for your house. So it's basically
All assets other than your house
other than
equity.
your house, right? We don't count your personal property either unless you have like an antique car collection or something of substantial value. But your own like personal clothing, your TV, or even your car, we don't count that. So it's only if you have what the DOR terms as a collection of something that would be that type of personal property would include it in your whole estate. But pretty much it's basically, I always call it what you have in the bank. So it's your accounts, it's any investments that you might have, stocks, bonds, that kind of thing.
Including retirement accounts.
Yes. So it does not include any type of well, that's the income part. I was just going to say the income part doesn't include any type of reverse mortgage. Like a lot of people have reverse mortgages and they get income from that. So when we talk about the income, it doesn't include that income. So, but that's not a whole estate.
Are you seeing a lot of reverse mortgages?
I see a few reverse mortgages, yes.
Oh, I hate that.
I know. I do too. I would shy away from those as well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should get involved in reverse
Yeah.
mortgages. So these asset amounts are so low that you have very many how many people are we talking about?
Okay, so we have, so of the 41C with the income and the whole estate requirements, I have 4. And then the four. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the 17D, which is just the whole estate, I have 5.
So so my reaction is we should be doing whatever we can for these people that are in this sort of asset problem area.
Mm-hmm. And we have had in the past people that have applied that have been just above it. They're close. So, they're too far over that they can't get in. But if we adopt something like this, that would possibly allow more people to be able to get into the program and get the exemption.
You don't have to spend time verifying assets, do you?
Yes,
Oh, you do?
Makes sense.
yes, I do.
Wow,
I have to verify, yes, it's required by law.
okay.
So, but that's not public. Those exemptions, the applications are not public record.
Right.
We do them all in executive
I'm
session.
concerned that it takes up too much of your time.
No, it's my job. It's my job.
Okay.
It's part of the job. So,
So those were my questions on this part.
okay.
I think it makes sense to do whatever we can for these people.
41C income, gross receipts from all sources in the year preceding application cannot exceed 20,000 if single and 30,000 if married. That would does that mean these folks are not on Social Security or something like that?
Okay, so there is a Social Security deduction.
Okay.
For single, it's around 6,000. For a couple, it's more like 14,000. So they don't include all of the Social Security in that income. And like I was telling Pete before, with the reverse mortgage, that income also would not be included as a part of that maximum that you can have. So somebody could actually, a single person could actually have like 26,000 and they'd still qualify because they have that $6,000 deduction in the Social Security. So, but that's low too.
So given the low number of people that participate, I think, I agree with Pete that we're hardly helping anybody, but at least the people that manage to make it under this bar, we probably should help. So I would buy that. But then I question whether there aren't other seniors that are maybe not in the same spot that, you know, that's not a very impactful target, which maybe that's because that's fine. We're good. But then that's,
No, I agree. And we've
Yeah.
talked about that. And I think this was a good exercise for us to go through to see, you know, where those different breaking points were for our seniors. And I think that's why last year we were able to address setting up the elementary school mitigation fund to also help everybody in town, but also help those seniors who may not qualify for this, but, you know, we'll see the impact from the school and now obviously Park and Rec.
And we do have the senior work-off
And the senior
program.
work-off, which
so
we'll talk
We'll talk about
that's
that
my
too.
next question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was the one that
I was-
seemed to me did help seniors who
Yep.
are willing to help the town. We didn't change that. It's still the 1,000.
No, so we were going to recommend just going to 1,500
Yeah.
for that program.
Okay.
You know, we wanted to make just a couple adjustments to that program. We would amend the amount from 1,000 to 1,500. Now, remember, with now it is paid minimum wage by law. So right now they work 67 hours to get that 1,000. Then the hours would increase to 100 to get the 1,500. So our seniors would have to work the additional hours.
Well, I think the minimum wage is going up, so.
Yes, so if the minimum wage goes up, we experienced that because we had 4 years where the minimum wage kept creeping up, and so we had to adjust the hours.
Just the hours.
Okay,
So
so
we
that,
would,
that's
we
also
would,
going up.
that would be built in, yeah. So if the minimum wage, then those hours would adjust accordingly.
Yeah, so we have a couple of recommendations we'd like to see change to the senior tax work-off program, and I've had a conversation, obviously, with Georgia and Yvonne, who helped run that with Sarah Hannafin at the Council on Aging. I have not sat down with the Council on Aging board to discuss these yet, so I kind of wanted to float them by you as they were part of my goals last year. But one of the things we ran into this past year, well, when this was originally passed, we had very specific rules that were passed at town meeting to implement the program. And then over the years, the 10 or 15 years, it was 10 years it was in existence.
More than.
Those rules kind of lapsed a little bit. And then when we started looking back at it, we tightened it up this year and we made the people who were involved in the program had to follow the rules. Now, we had some unfortunate consequences to that, which meant that somebody who was a substitute teacher for 4 or 5 times during the year no longer was eligible for the senior tax work-off
Because you work for the town?
because you work for the town, which was heartbreaking for us because we have some really great substitutes who are also really great senior tax work-off, and they were really angry in my office because they like doing both, and they had to choose, and that was really hard. But I felt we had to hold that line because that was the bylaw.
That's what got voted, yeah.
Right, and we made the changes. So I had talked to them, and I had talked to Sarah about changing that at town meeting to allow you to work less than 15 hours per week for the town to be available, so that you could sub 1 or 2 times a week. And most of the subs that we talked to said, you know, it's maybe once a week, once a month. We just like being with the kids and staying involved. So we would like to make that recommendation for a change. The bylaw also isn't, it's clear and unclear in that you can't be an elected official and receive this. It refers to town officials, but it never says you can't be an appointed official. So technically right now, somebody who's serving on a board or committee would be eligible for this, but they're really not, because those are volunteer positions and they're not paid an hourly rate. And then we're paying somebody an hourly rate to be on a board or committee. So we would like to change it so that it's no town official, elected or appointed, can be eligible for this program.
Yes.
And you can serve on any board or committee, but then volunteer for something else. So,
I just want to understand the dynamics there. So you just said no elected or appointed official who's paid can take advantage, or?
no, I don't think any, well, right now, the current bylaw is no elected officials can participate in the program.
Okay.
It then references later on town officials, but it doesn't make that differentiation between also being appointed. But my concern is you have volunteer boards and commissions, and then by doing this program, we'd be paying them an hourly rate. So you have
Oh, you
some-
mean paying them as,
Being on the
so
board.
they're
The tax work office, technically, we pay them for their hours worked. So for example,
including volunteer time?
yeah,
Is that a bylaw change we need to make, or is that
we
a?
need to make a bylaw change
Yeah,
too.
because I'm working it the opposite way, that said, I'm thinking of something like a Ralph Parmesan. I don't know whether he detects
Yeah.
night off or not, but there are certain people in town, I would think, that would be willing to volunteer who might be eligible for this program as well. And we wouldn't want them not volunteering because it's cost, turn it the other way around, say, if I want to volunteer, this is going to
Actually,
cost me
We're
this.
talking about opposites.
There's
Yeah,
two
I'm on the
issues.
opposite side of that.
Yeah.
There's two issues there. One is, and it's obvious to me that somebody shouldn't use their time on a board or commission unpaid to qualify.
Correct.
That being
Correct.
said, if they're
Right.
doing it and they do something else
Right.
in the town, that's a policy decision.
That's what I think. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I
That's what
think,
the
I
rule should
think
be. Okay.
Ralph's a good example, because Ralph, I think, did do the tax work-off program on this. He also volunteered and did stuff for the
Yeah.
Memorial Day Committee.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
as long as you have an additional volunteered position, I'm concerned about elected and appointed officials.
Yeah, I understand the elected,
Yeah.
I understand the restriction on elected. I think that's appropriate.
The Ethics Commission actually, at my suggestions, 10 or 15 years ago, actually put an exemption in on the prohibition for holding two positions with the town for senior work off, so that they're okay with it.
And I should say, we're not looking for an answer tonight. There's plenty of time to discuss. We have to put some warrant articles together. I'd like to talk to the Council on Aging Board. This just got presented to you in July, and we haven't had a chance to discuss it. And I didn't want it to fall by the wayside, because I know Yvonne put a tremendous amount of work in this for me this summer, so.
So is the bold type what you're looking to add, basically, where you're saying,
Yeah.
or appointed?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we can take some
I
time,
want to
think
use a
about it.
microphone, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, he's talking to me about something else.
All right, so do you need,
Sorry.
This is just information.
Christine,
You're on
so
my
we
side.
can,
I don't need anything
thank
from
you.
you tonight. I just wanted you to hear the presentation, hear what Yvonne had to say about it, and just start to think about what we're gonna do. I have reserved placeholders for all of these on town meeting, so
Okay.
we can start drafting articles and we can start talking about them and further. Yes.
So my point,
This
which,
my meeting or your meeting?
No, it's
this is
together.
what I was just saying, Franklin is taking up the two statutes tomorrow night, so I've got those resolutions which
Oh,
can
great.
easily be converted into town meeting articles.
Perfect.
So it was your meeting.
Great, thank you
The
very
other,
much.
Thank
the
you,
other
Bob.
thing that I would suggest that we consider, I don't know whether this is the right time to do it, but is the programs like Wayland and Sudbury have, where they basically do income shifting to the seniors that have
That's
been in
special
town for a certain amount of time. I understand, I think you need special legislation from,
Right.
to
And
do
then-
it.
So we looked at those as part of this whole thing, and the concern with that is I have plenty of younger families in town who then we shift that tax burden to everybody else in town. And I think, you know, if we go back and look at that school vote, it wasn't just the seniors who had concerns about cost. It was all of our families. So I'm
Yeah.
just concerned about making that big of a shift, but we're happy to present something if you'd like to see it. But I think if we start here, I think we're,
Yeah, I'd like to see that myself, but I think that the long-term seniors in town, that we should try to help them stay in town. And if we can do a little bit financially to do that, I think it behooves the town to do so.
we do that.
Okay. All right, appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was helpful.
Oh, and your contracts come up. Yeah, can we take Yvonne's contracts?
Yeah, which one are you looking at? Tell me, number?
Here's number 6.
Number
Sorry.
6, okay. Vote to sign annual contracts with Caletis, Tax and Kama
Not literally your contract, just a contract with you
Yes.
have. Okay.
for consulting services. We got commercial industrial evaluations for 43,500 and personal property evaluations for 36,000.
Do I need to talk again? Okay, so that's actually for 5 years. So it's for personal property, it's 36,000 for 5 years, so it's 7,200 per year. Currently, we pay 6,800 per year. You probably don't remember, but we had a 5-year contract that just ended with our recertification. So what Patriot, which is now called Catalyst, is our CAMA vendor, computer assisted mass appraisal, and they also assist us with our consulting services for personal property and commercial property. We have to do a lot more valuation, different types of evaluation for those types of properties for the Department of Revenue. So they help with the reports for the DOR, especially during recertification. They meet with our liaisons, any questions. They go out and view the personal property. They go out and view the commercial property. So they are a big help to me and my staff. They do a great job. This will be my 30th year in assessing, if you can believe it. I can't. And I have been a customer of Patriot for 30 years, and I think they are just top of the line. So I also think that this is a very reasonable adjustment. The last contract, again, it's a $400 increase on the personal property and a $500 a year increase on the commercial and industrial.
Pete, you have any questions?
No?
I have 2 questions, and these are probably more a Mark contract review. I don't have a problem with the structure, price, and all that. Okay. In both contracts, there was something, I was trying to copy the packet. There was something that talked about each year, what's with the calendar year 2020? There's a place, see how it says on the first contract, it talks about like review all sales from calendar year 2028 to current. And I didn't know what that was saying, because it seemed, I think it's under the FY30. I think the heading is FY30. It's like, I don't understand why everything is 2028 to current. It was just, I didn't know what it meant.
It's on page 12, or 2, excuse me.
It was just weird wording.
On attachment A,
Deal with the
what he just
proposal,
referred
I
to
just
is on
dealt with
page
the
2.
boilerplate, so.
Well, I have a boilerplate question for you too, but
It's in the scope of work. Yeah.
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 I just didn't understand it, that's all.
You wonder if they cut and pasted it.
Was it on the?
It's just the first contract, I think, has it, not the second, the commercial and industrial valuations.
So fiscal year 2030 and CI certification consulting, commercial real estate review all sales from calendar year 2028 to current, build models and tables on the escrow cost system, blah, blah, blah. And then generate all required spreadsheets, reports, and other documentation necessary to comply with the Mass Department of Revenue's regulations and assist with fiscal year 2030 certifications.
Okay, so that's he'll do 28 and 29 for fiscal year 30. They do
Yep.
2 years for fiscal year 30. And fiscal year 30
So that's the only,
will
that's
be
the
our
only one.
another, will be, okay, so, sorry. So fiscal year 30 will be our next recertification.
Ah, so
And
that's
so
why.
they will
Got it.
review 28 and 29. They do 2 years.
Okay.
For commercial and personal, we need to look at 2 years for our research. So that's why it says that.
That makes sense.
Then the only other question, this might be more for you, is almost every contract we get when it has an attachment A from the contractor, the clause in our contract says that the contract incorporates attachment A for scope only. This one simply says attachment A is incorporated as part of the documents. Attachment A is the complete set of terms and conditions. I went through them and it seemed to me that the terms and conditions they were proposing were okay. It's just that that's not what we've normally
Right.
done.
And that's largely because a lot of them have their own legal boilerplate that is totally inconsistent with ours, and that's why we limited it just across the board
Okay.
to scope of work and pricing, then we don't
Right.
have to deal with that.
Right.
This outfit, and I don't remember offhand, this was weeks ago that I was working with Yvonne on this, whether I actually reviewed
Yeah.
their terms and all, but we use them in Franklin as well. They depend on municipalities,
Right.
so they're not gonna put in something that is objectionable, generally speaking.
So
I'm
the
not as
reason we didn't.
concerned about it
So you're not
and the
concerned,
nature of
okay.
the work. It's
Okay.
not the same.
Okay, so me, it's all pattern recognition. There's a certain way we do this on all our contracts, and this was different. And so I was trying, then, so I spent time, and to be honest, I read their terms and conditions, and it was like, okay, no, these sound like pretty much what we'd want. It's just having two sets of terms and conditions, and having incorporated their entire proposal into this, just, that's murky, but
We do
it's
have
fine.
language that says if there's a conflict or a higher standard, our contract controls.
Correct, but it also says all of these represent the sole thing, which includes their staff. So that's fine. You've said not worried. I read it. I didn't see any objections either. It was just a different practice, which is why I asked the question. So I'm good.
Okay,
Okay, ready?
yes,
Can we do both these contracts in one motion?
yes.
Okay. I move that we vote to, I move that we sign annual contracts with Cathalis Tax and CAMA for consulting services. Two contracts. The first for commercial and industrial evaluations, total value of $43,500 over a 5-year term at $8,700 per year through June 2030. A second contract for personal property evaluations, total value of $36,000 over a 5-year term at $7,200 per year through June 2030.
Second?
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Excellent. Thank you. All right, so let's jump back up to
Number 4.
discussion of a dedicated phone line, town administrator's office for residents to report incidents that violate the select board statement against oppressive actions and speech directed at individuals and groups.
So I think there was some miscommunication about that, and I want to apologize. When I had presented this to you as part of the whole town administrator status update, I had presented it for your review. We got sidetracked with a couple of our other projects. I think there were some of you who thought we had already put this in place. I'm looking at you guys. So I'm not, you already gave me the approval to set this up. It's been set up. We're ready to go. We were just looking for approval on the draft press release, the website, and I really want to give Nick and Amelia credit. They worked on this project all summer. This was their major part of their intern project. They both went back to school before they had a chance to present it to you. I know Kenny got a chance to do his presentation. So just want to make sure they get the credit for doing the research and getting this up and running for us.
Okay. Pete, any questions?
No, and please thank them both for
I
will.
all the work they did.
We'll get it
My
up
only
and running.
comment
soon.
is I don't think we need to approve the public. The
No.
only thing I cared about is we said, put the line in. The line's in, that's all I need to know. The
We're
way
ready to
it
go.
makes sense that you'd because the one thing I thought is the line went in at the beginning of the summer. I said, it's funny though, I haven't seen anything in public to let people know it's in place. So I agree with the concept of getting the word out, but I don't think we need to. I
No,
don't
we're
think
ready to
we-
go.
yeah.
We'll get it out right away. I have a feeling it might go out on Sunday.
All right, we're good. If we want to vote, we're good. All right. Discussion update of Eversource utility work on Hospital Road.
Yes, let me just get my notes for that. I just wanted to give you an update. We talked last week about doing the staging or laying out area, as Eversource calls it. They're not going to need that. They've been able to utilize some storage space in Walpole, so we're not going to need to do that.
Okay.
In the meantime, I had a call from a resident who had contacted Pete, who was concerned about, there's a gentleman up there who was marking the lines for Eversource and had told some tall tales about what was happening with the project. I can't say enough about our local community liaison from Eversource, Jared Blandino. He was fantastic. I sent him the email, had a call within the first few minutes, attended a construction conference with them. They actually stopped in today in person to check to make sure everybody was fine. But it's just a simple pole replacement. They're not moving into people's yards. They could move side to side, depending on the pole placement. We're not widening the roadway. There is some minor tree trimming that has already taken place for the project. We're not bringing gas further up the line. I'm trying to think of all the other things that were, and it should be done in about 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
It is being driven by the Trinity project, but it was also slated for an upgrade to reliability for anybody in that area as well.
Good.
So it should be all set. They should be in and out fairly quickly. But if anybody has any issues, Eversource is ready to come out and meet with any resident who has some concerns about it.
All right.
But there
Sounds
was
good.
apparently some very officious person who scared the local resident.
Yes, we're still trying to track them down.
You-
We're not ours.
Were you the local resident, Pete?
No, no.
And there's no
No.
truth, there's no truth to the recent rumor that the Parks and Rec admin office is going to be moved to the security
Oh,
trailer.
jeez.
It's the house of-
That may have been on the list that we talked about.
All right, moving along. We're
Didn't
running.
make
We
that
got a long
crack
night going
before
on here.
anybody left the meeting. It's gonna-
All right, so now we can move into the number 7, vote to appoint the following residents to the Medfield Cultural Council, Elizabeth Allison and Doug Curl.
Yes, and this request came from Ron Gustafson of the Cultural Alliance.
Good.
Cultural Council, sorry.
All right, Pete, you good with that?
Yep.
I want to ask a dumb question. This is just one of those, you always find these gaps. The Cultural Council, how does that connect to things like Belforge or anything? Is it a,
Cultural Council gets money from the state every year, $4,000. I think we double it.
We double it.
And so they have $8,000 a year to distribute to the
Disperse.
projects in the
So they're
town.
it goes to what does it go to? I mean, it's just one of
People
those.
apply for
People
grants.
apply for grants. I know we've received them in the past. We have some artwork on the first floor that we received.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Yep.
that's that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Okay,
They
okay.
gave me money for fireworks.
I
and,
think
fireworks.
Zulo's probably receives.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those things where it's like, I should know the answer to this question, but I've been doing this long enough and you know what? I didn't.
Here's your nugget of knowledge.
Learning something new every
Good.
day.
Right.
All right, moving right along. I think this has been a long night. We have an executive session after this.
Yep. You ready?
Yep.
I move that we appoint Elizabeth Allison and Douglas Curl, residents of Medfield, to the Medfield Cultural Council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, vote to approve the use of the townhouse front lawn during the holiday stroll to be hosted by Parks and Recreation Department.
So we, Katie and I spoke today. We are actually not going to approve it for s'mores. We've decided to change that based on the drought
fire.
and the fire. We were hoping, we held out hope that things would improve, but with still no rain. So they're going to try and pivot and do something else, but clearly they have a lot on their plate right now. So I think if we just authorize them to use it, if they come up with a simple idea, otherwise we'll hold out for s'mores next year.
Okay.
Why don't we change it to have their office out there?
Well, they are overlooking the warrant committee.
Approve it for Klondike.
All right.
It's gonna burn.
Okay.
All right,
Yes, go ahead.
I move that we approve the use of the townhouse front lawn during the holiday stroll to be hosted by the Parks and Recreation Department.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Vote to open the 2025 annual town meeting warrant. Warrant to close on January 7th, 2025. 2025 annual town meeting right now is scheduled for May 5th, 2025.
Ready?
Yep.
I move that we open the 2025 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote to sign the award contract for the federal fiscal year 2024 emergency management preparedness grant for $3,500. Emergency management chief Chair Carrico.
I would make the observation that this contract, like the other one, has like 35 pages of certifications, making the same assumption that everything we had to do for the last one, we probably are covered with this one. And
Yes, there were a couple in the Safer grant that we have to write new policies for, but we're working with Clifford and Kenny to do that, and they're drafting the policies for your acceptance at some point.
Ready? I move that we sign the award contract for the federal fiscal year 2024 Emergency Management Preparedness Grant for $3,500. I guess submitted as by the Emergency Management Chief Carrico.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Vote to sign the award contract for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program for $61,739.
Ready?
Yep. Are you good, Pete?
Yes.
Yep.
I move that we sign the award contract for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program for $61,739.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Sorry, I just sort of threw a monkey wrench in this. Can we actually authorize Christine to sign that one? think
I
she-
move that we authorize Chris, the town administrator, to sign the award contract for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program for $61,739.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I just noticed her name is the one on the contract, so
No
I
worries.
apologize.
Good.
Green Communities Annual Report Update.
Yes, I have to apologize. Susan McPhee has been working very hard with Frank and Ben on this. Susan was traveling back from Japan, and so there was a miscommunication in our timeline, and the grant was due on Friday. So I had to have Eileen sign it on your behalf. She definitely got a much easier path than you've had in the past because it's 3 pages and it's unbelievably easy to read compared to.
Do they don't do the report? I mean,
They don't do the big, huge spreadsheet anymore. It's a portal. So when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to send this to her. And then I looked at it and I was like,
It wasn't bad.
No, it was quite extensive when it was this massive spreadsheet you had to go through. But I apologize to the timing. I had to have her sign it so we could get it in on Friday. I thought you'd all
For the
be.
record, although the first time I balked at signing until I had read the report, I was glad I read the report because the town has done a heck of a lot.
Yeah,
of
they
stuff.
have. Yep, that's
So I'm kind of sorry that it's not being documented in the same excruciating detail that I enjoyed.
that's right. We have an executive session tonight. It's still going to be excruciating, right?
But I will point out we are receiving an award because we have a greater than a 20% reduction since we started this on the baseline of our program. So that's also why I figured we'd be okay signing it since we were.
So are we voting on this or are we just going to let
No,
you
just-
twist in the wind?
I think you're just going to let me hang out there.
All right. Vote to sign letter of support for the 495 partnership application for the Regional Economic Development Organization, a REDO grant program.
495 partnership is applying for a grant. We actually use them tremendous amount. Believe it or not, they're kind of a quiet organization. Maria's a part of the organization, so she attends their meetings. I used to attend them. And during COVID, they were one of the most helpful organizations to us in providing updates for all of the things we needed to do. They were just a tremendous source of information for us, particularly in terms of a lot of the grants that Sarah was able to go after. So we're a huge supporter and would like them to keep going.
Are they connected to MAPC or that's totally separate?
No, totally separate organization. Yep.
All right, Pete,
Is
any
it
questions?
is it a state-sponsored organization like MAPC?
Yeah, they get some economic development money from the state, but they have to keep applying for grants to keep going. But we found them to be a tremendous support to us.
Whereas MAPC is actually a state organization.
Is it?
All right.
But
Pete,
their
any questions?
consultants have to get state money too.
All right, then we can move to a motion.
Okay. Who signs this one, Frank, before I start?
This one is Eileen first.
Just Eileen, I move that we authorize the chair to sign the letter of support for the 495 Partnerships application for the Regional Economic Development Organization REDO Grant Program.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, vote to approve Rick Fink's request to use Warrior Park on November 27th, 2024. And is there a time frame on that one? I forget. It's like 11 to 1 or...
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
midday, let's put that way.
We entertained it. You were all supportive of it, but we did not actually take an official vote when he left. So just to be safe, we'll put it on there.
And he sent a summary to me that he's
Yeah.
done a bunch of stuff, so, okay.
All set? I move that we approve Rick Fink's request to use Warrior Park on November 27th, 2024.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, vote to authorize Select Board Member Eileen Murphy to participate in Arbor Day at Metacomet Park tree planting. What is the story on that one?
We really miss Brittany.
What's that?
We really miss Brittany. Brittany and Mo usually organize this, and it's just got delayed. The trees have been planted by Eversource at Metacomet. So
These are the ones they said they're going to do around town?
Yeah,
Ah,
so we
okay.
need to have the ceremony so we can apply to keep our Tree City application.
Oh, jeez.
I know. It's my baby.
12
so
years. It'll be
It's gonna be 12 years. So
All right, let's not break the
so put on your parka.
well, all you gotta do, I told you what days I'm available,
I
not
know.
available. So.
Mo's gonna work directly with you, but put on your parka and we'll shovel some dirt.
Well, hey, the way global warming, it might not be parka weather.
No,
All right, so
that's
go
what
ahead.
That's what we're working on with some travel
All
schedules.
right. I move that we authorize select board members Eileen Murphy to participate in Arbor Day at Metacomet Park tree planting.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Citizens comment, I'm going that there is not one. Consent agenda, vote to approve the request from Memo to place sandwich board signs at the corner of North and Main Street and Route 27 and South Street to promote Mrs. Claus's Gingerbread House Contest to take place at the tree lighting on December 6, 2024.
How could we ever stand in the way of that? But I move that we approve
You
the
can say
item
so
on the
moved.
consent agenda. Huh?
You can say so moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Good evening.
All right.
Aye.
Meeting minutes, we don't have any. Gifts, accept a gift from the Medfield Lions Club to Medfield Outreach. Do you know what the gift value is?
$350.
All right.
Move that we accept a $350 gift from the Medfield Lions Club to Medfield Outreach.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have 2 meetings left this year, folks, December 3rd and December 17th. That is crazy how quick this year's gone by. And then as we roll into 2025, 2 a month, January 7th and January 21st, February 4th, February 18th, March 4th, March 18th. We're not kidding. It really is April Fool's Day, April 1st, April 15th, and then we have a placeholder on the 29th, which would be just before the annual town meeting.
Correct.
Okay. All right, select board member reports. Pete?
I had a meeting with a woman from the Charles River Watershed Association. She offered help to the town with respect to dams or removing dams and stormwater issues, if we want to take them up on it. Went to a special program that the DOER was doing on the specialized opt-in code. I went to another program on accessory dwelling units, housing and
This is here.
Let's see.
She gets this one.
I don't remember what they're called now. And then there was a series of contacts from residents that live along the Stop River about beavers, which I forwarded to Christine, Frank, and Mo, and Bobby Kennedy today. The Energy Committee had a meeting last week, and we talked about the Green Communities Act. The Medfield Memorial Library work is just about finished. I was interested that there's like a $75,000 award for windows in the town hall, townhouse, because I think of this as relatively recently redone. I was sort of shocked that the windows are leaking already after 25 years or something.
It's 27 years in March that they've been, 27, 26.
The grants for the Green Communities Act next year are due in April, so that the Energy Committee will line up the proposals for that. The comment was made about the Dale Street School, if the heat was flying out the roof, that interested me. And whether it makes any sense to do anything on that, given the fact that it's going to be like 7 or 8 years, or 6 or 7 years, someone said, until we get a new school. They reviewed that audit that had been done of the buildings. They've got a group of people that are going to look into that. I guess they need to follow up with the school committee about the zero emissions vehicle policy, which is one of the things that needs to get checked off. The Energy Committee is Sustainable Medfield's lead for this last quarter. And the issue that they're putting forward is that specialized opt-in code, which has higher, for new construction, it has higher energy ratings. And that was it. That's it. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Gus?
And the only thing I've got is, I also had a call with Ariana Proya from Charles River Watershed were three things that came out of that. One was the dam issue, which you already mentioned, Pete. Also, apparently they have somebody who can help with stormwater regulations. That was something she put on. I'm not sure I didn't have an issue. I did raise the issue of whether they had anybody to help with carbon sequestration, which is the fifth pillar of the state's carbon plan that we have not incorporated into our plan. She said they do, so that there's supposed to be somebody reaching out in all three of those areas. And I did just confirm with her that we have a partnership with our DPW and them. She said yes, and she actually thought the person that might be reaching out to us could be the same person that's working with DPW. So it sounds like somebody might be familiar with our town. And that's all I have.
All right. And my list is a lot shorter than last time. So I did have my Affordable Housing Trust meeting last Thursday. We did get a chance. Lisa Mead was able to join us, and we signed the Declaration of Trust, which basically helps as we move forward with Trinity and money is given to the town. The trust is able to hold it and then pay out accordingly, which helps Trinity. And then I had a call with Jill, head of the dog control bylaw group, to kind of just updated one another on like what I'm seeing up at the state hospital, which is, I think, progress. You've got the police are up there, Jenny's up there quite a bit, the dialogue up there with everybody walking is, they're getting a feel for where they can and cannot be. A lot of communication, not a lot of hostility. It seems to be going along well. So the question was like, what's the next step? What is there something that they should be looking to do for May 2025? So they're going to get together and talk through. A matter of fact, Christine, what Jill was asking is, she believes maybe back in May someone might have sent you an email inquiring to be on the dog control bylaw group because they have lost a couple of members. So if you can check that, that'd be great. But otherwise, they're looking for a few more members. And kind of like that, what I kind of poked at that with them is they've talked about what Newton has done, and by increasing their fees, what would a dog owner get for an increased license fee? And the only thing I caution them on is, since we don't really know what's happening with Trinity right now, the only thing I would caution is, if we're going to up some fees and we say there's going to be land where they can walk and we're charging, we got to make sure it's not going to be anything that's going to be contentious. But could they be looking at other fees just in terms of other areas in town? And the other thing that we talked about was, we as a board gave guidance on the state hospital land. We have not given guidance on Wheelock, because water and sewer really should be chiming in there before we say where we're going to have people walk dogs on and off leash. As well as technically across the street from the state hospital. A lot of people park their cars and just go off down towards the river. We didn't really say whether that's legit or not. I'm leaning towards, today most people go off leash over there. There's just a whole crew that likes to be over there away from the fields, but we haven't talked about that, as well as any other areas in town. Mark?
So I just caution, they probably need to establish a separate fee basis, not just increase license fee.
Fair statement. Thank you for catching me on that. I didn't mean that. It meant like if you checked off what you wanted, you could then be.
Right.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, didn't want to take
I
that the wrong
sent
way.
Jill all of our contact information for Bill Harvey, so she could talk to water and sewer about what areas
Yep.
they should and shouldn't recommend down at Wheelock.
Yeah, and that's
So is that the process, given the comment we had about the state hospital and the concerns Pete had, is the process going to be that the bylaw committee, dog control committee will come in with a recommendation to us for the other Wheelock Fields?
Yeah, to say that they've had a chance to meet with water and sewer, and this is what they're hearing.
Okay.
And I know Jill certainly has talked with you to make sure that they, like, especially when they did the bylaw, that they didn't put anything that like, for example, we didn't put in the bylaw what the restrictions were going to be. We were going to push it back on the select board to make those restrictions, so that we didn't have to go to a town meeting every time to make any updates if pieces of property got sold off and we needed to make any
So
changes.
the process in those cases where the property is under care, custody, and control of somebody else, I would think would be a two-parter. You'd get something formal from water and sewer saying yay or nay, and
Right.
then you would take the next step if you
Okay.
wanted to do that.
Okay, perfect. All right, that sounds good. All right, and other than that, those are my little activities in the past week.
We skipped over mine, so I'll just let you know that.
Well, I did say town administrator updates and it was void, and then we went to next meeting date. So that's why I looked at this. I'm like, well, I know we have it, but you are more than happy to chime in, and
No,
you worked on this beautiful graphic.
Most of my update was going to be about the FAF Center, so you got that live tonight. So this will be posted on the website tomorrow. But just so you know, we have our November town administrator update.
Fantastic. All right. All right. So we are going to wrap up this meeting and go into executive session. Roll call vote to an executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with with union personnel, Medfield Permanent Firefighters Association, and to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto. We will not be reconvening at the end of this executive session.
I move that we go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with union personnel, in this case, the Medfield Permanent Firefighters Association, and to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect to their to what?
With respect there too.
With respect there to.
All right, I will do a roll.
Hold on, and we
Second.
will not reconvene at the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
Those in favor,
Nope.
we'll do roll call vote. Pete?
Yep.
Yes.
Eileen, yes. All right. Good night.
Night.